So you should see that over here on those ones. So now you have found the correct order, you've put that contact lens prescription up here, you've brought the patient back, you've confirmed that that is in fact what they're actually wearing to the best of their knowledge. Then you're asking them, how often do you wear the contact? Is it every day, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, just for sports? And you're putting it in, they've got the boxes that are up there that say wear. AWT is average wear time. How many hours do you wear them when you wear them? How often do you replace them? What solution do you use? And sleep in lenses, we like the phrasing of that to be pretty specific. How often do you sleep in your lenses? Not, oh, you're not sleeping in your lenses, are you? Do you sleep in your lenses? Because because patients want to get it right. They make the doctor happy. No, I don't sleep in my lenses. Now, how often do you sleep in your lenses? Never great. But how often instead of do you or, and then the contact lens note. Now in here, you should put things specific to the contacts. You do not have to duplicate anything that's on the chief complaint page, nor do you have to add things that are specific just to the contacts on the chief complaint page. You keep that all on the contact lens note portion of it. If it's a complete exam, one question you really want to know, especially with a soft contact lens, is the comfort good all day long? And then is it good through whatever the replacement modality is? If it's a daily lens, then fine, all day long. If it's 2 weeks, is it good all day long and through 2 weeks? Is it good all day long and through 1 month? So that should go in here. Comfort good all day, all month. Comfort good all day and through 3 weeks. Now, if it is not good all day, or if it is not good through the entire 2 weeks or through the entire month that it's supposed to be, then your next bit should be, okay, what solution are they using? You could try Clear Care. That's one thing to help with the longevity. If they're already using Clear Care, talk to them about it. Do you have dry eye issues? Do you have allergy issues? You don't sleep in the contact at all? If you've already gone, through all of that, you're just kind of confirming things. Then, okay, well, we do have a lens that's meant to be replaced every 2 weeks instead of every month. Maybe we go to that. That way, you don't get to that 3 week point and want to tear the contact. Or we have a daily, so you can offer other modalities, and then whatever the patient says, no, I'm good with these, then fine. Offered 2 week or daily, patient wants to stay in this contact. So you're just kind of trying to do some of the doctor's footwork for him. Or, ooh, patient interested in dailies, great. So if it's not good all day, or if it's not good through 2 weeks or a month, if that's the kind of contact it is, then make sure that that gets put in the contact lens note. So then it's vision and over refract. So if I have a patient and it's a soft contact lens, I'm taking the occluder, okay, cover your left eye, tell me the smallest set of letters you can read up there. While they're figuring that out, I've got the trial frame drawer open, I'm taking my trial, my plus 50, and I'm waiting, and as soon as they're done reading the right eye, I'm holding that in front. Better or worse with that lens? If it's better, fine, I'll grab a +1. Better 1, better 2. Better 1, like the plus 50, good, I'm done. If he reads 20/20 and plus 50 makes it worse, I'm done. I'm not going to offer minus on an eye that's already seeing 20/20. So cover your left eye. So while you're occluding, so it's not, okay, cover your right eye. Good, cover your left eye. Okay, cover your right eye again. I'm going to hold this lens in front. Just save yourself some time and be ready to rock and roll. Plus 50 always first. If it makes it worse, offer -1/4 and quarter steps of minus as long as the quarter gets them seeing better. And again, if they're 20/20, you don't have to do that. If they're in a toric lens, a soft toric lens, still just do the trial frame in front. We're going to base that toric prescription pretty much off their manifest. If they're normally 20/20, but they're 20/50 with this contact and there's no improvement with a spherical trial frame, go ahead and grab the 4-opter and go over it. But if they're like 20/30 and you get a plus 50 over refract and now they're 20/25 plus 2, you're done. The rest of it will get based off the manifest. Does that make sense? If they're an RGP scleral or synergize, you want to do the check with the 4-opter. So what I do, I don't hand them the occluder and say, go ahead and cover your left eye, look out there, what does the right eye see, and then grab the 4-opter. I take the 4-opter, put it in front of them, put planosphere in there, and say, I'm just going to see how your contacts see on their own. Use the OC part, the occluder part of the 4-opter, and then see what the right eye sees on its own. Go straight into your over refract. Sphere only on the over refract unless they don't get to their normal best corrected vision. If they're in an RGP or scleral and they're normally 20/20, sphere only over refract only gets them to 20/30, then check still in access. But if you get to 20/20 minus, good enough. So we would only put a toric in a specialty contact, usually if it gets them seeing 2 lines better, unless it's the difference between like 20/50 and 24, like legally drive, lifestyle difference, like major, because it's not worth the hassle of the rotation of the contact and everything else that can go awry with those. So you've got vision, over refract. The next thing, if they're a soft contact lens, then you're gonna evaluate the fit. So this is just a crash course in evaluating a toric fit. A soft contact, you want to see, no matter what kind of soft contact it is, if it's soft, you want to see movement when they blink. So have them look in the slit lap kind of over to the side nasal or temporal corner, have them blink. You want to see that contact move a little bit. If you can't see it move on a straight ahead gaze blinking, have them look up and blink. You'll typically always see it move and move a lot more when they're looking up blinking. If you still really don't see movement, you can take your thumb, put it on their lower lid, and manually push that contact up. It's called free to push. If they have no comfort issues and it moves a little bit, or it's at least free to push, then that's within normal limit fit. If it's moving past limbus, that's a little too loose. Chances are it's inside out. That would be our first assumption. Lenses that are inside out move a lot. But that would be our first. Otherwise, that's too loose. We don't want something going past limbus. So the next part is, if it's a toric, it's evaluating the rotation of the contact. This is really important. The rotation is based on your left or right as you're looking. So if we're all looking at this contact, that's at 6 o'clock. If we're looking at this contact, here that rotation is off to the right, that's like 25 degrees to the right, and it's my right as I'm looking at it, okay? So that toric mark over there, it's subjective to your opinion, just like pupils. There's a pupil gauge. There is, how many of you guys have eye doc?
Is that an app?
So there's an app.
Oh.
Eye doc, there is one, it's only available on iPhone. Droids have iHandbook. But they have this little app with a toric mark, and you can move the toric and see, okay, so if it's over there, oh, that's like 25 degrees. If it's here, it's that. If it's there. So I tell people to play with it, especially when you work in them a lot, to see where it is. The reason the rotation of the contact is important is that we're expecting, if we're correcting somebody's astigmatism and say their axis is 180, we're expecting when that contact is weighted correctly and correct on the eye and the toric's right there, that it's giving them a 180 axis. If it's rotated off, well, instead of a 180, now they're getting like a 10 axis. And so we need to subtract to make it a 170, so that at that rotation it's actually a 180. Does that make sense? So the principle is, if the rotation is left, you add to the axis. If it's right, you subtract. So it's the Lars principle: left, add, right, subtract. The important thing is that that axis rotation gets added to the manifest refraction, not to the contact lens prescription. Soft contact lenses, more often than not, are rounded up or down. The axis comes in 10-degree steps for the majority of the contacts. Some will come in 5, and some custom orders you can get in any axis. You can get it in a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. But otherwise, you're having to take the patient who would be in an axis 5 and decide, well, do I want 180 or do I want 10? I'm rounding one way or the other. So if you get an axis rotation, you want to apply the left add, right subtract to the manifest axis, because it may have already been rounded up 5. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this one, it just kind of, it has a review of the different types of toric marks that you'll see in there. You'll most often see one at 6 o'clock, or the Bausch & Lomb has 3 lines. You're focusing on where the middle line is in the 3-line one. Or they're at 3 and 9. If you have a contact where the marks are at 3 and 9, then you have to imagine an imaginary line at 6. So this is the eyeball, you guys are all looking at it. So if it rotates this way, that imaginary 6 o'clock line moves over here. So that tells you the rotation is to the left, right? So if it's rotating this way, that imaginary line would be over here, so it tells you, so that's the left or right on that, okay? And again, it's subjective to your opinion. Sometimes you will see a 3 and 9 contact, and here at 3 o'clock it's nice and lined up, and then you look over here and it's down here, and you're like, whoa. So then I usually, I'll put like maybe slightly right. But it's not really rotated unless both of them are off. And there's one really good picture that I just printed off of my phone that I wanted to show you because you're gonna see this a lot, and this is super kind of hard to see, and I apologize. This is a Bausch and Lomb contact, so it's got the 3 toric marks, and this one's here. When I'm evaluating a toric, I'm doing a thin beam right at 6 coming down. This mark, it's turned this way, but it's actually at 6 o'clock. So you're gonna see that on the, whether it's a manufacturer defect on how they were made or how it sits on the eye, it's actually not rotated, because at 6, that toric lines up at 6, even though it's got this funky orientation, if you can see that mark right there. So, as long as it lines up at 6 o'clock, it's good, even if it seems to be turning kind of a little bit. You'll see on the contact lens page where you're putting in the fit, so that's this part right over here. You've got movement. As long as a soft contact lens moves and it's not going past me. I know you gotta go, that's okay, you're welcome. Then it's within normal limits. Rotation, that only applies to torics. The next thing you're gonna see in the center is position. Position only matters with a multifocal. Okay, position doesn't matter. I don't care if a soft contact's decentered, as long as the limbus is covered, it doesn't matter. But on a multifocal, how are we doing on time? A multifocal, centration is everything. So I'm gonna go into multifocals. We have,
Can I ask
yep,
a quick question, just
shoot.
back, so when it says add or subtract that amount of degrees, that's based off of whatever that contact is. So if it's 180 and it's to the right 5 degrees,
Mhm.
you would subtract that from 180, so you would set the MR at 175.
So you'd subtract it from the MR. So on this one, if the MR is 180, yeah, you'd subtract the 5 degrees from the MR.
Oh, okay.
But
And
the
then,
contact, like if the MR is 175, we might have set the contact at 180. But now,
I get it, so,
yeah.
yeah.
So
You said Lars?
Lars, left add, right subtract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically you do the MR,
Mhm.
and then you see
The
what
contact
that,
on
what,
the
what,
eye,
what
yeah.
the contact on the eye, and whatever that is, you subtract it from the MR you just did,
Yeah.
or
Or add. Yep,
Got it.
exactly. But that's why rotation is important.
Yep, got it.
So that we're making sure that the correct access is applied. Now, the multifocals for the soft contact, there's 2 types. There's Cooper vision, and then there's everybody else, okay? Everybody else, and you'll know everybody else because the add on everybody else is either low, medium, or high. If it says add low, medium, or high, then this is how their lens is designed. In the center of the lens is the near, and then you've got the intermediate, and then you've got the distance. The near, the center part, is designed to be an average pupil size, so say 4 millimeters. So what happens when they dilate at night, and the pupil's larger, they're gonna have glare, they're gonna have halos, because now they've got 2 different focal points in their center visual axis, right? What happens if that contact lens is decentered? They could have more than 1 focal point in their visual axis. So centration is huge on a multifocal. So if you've got somebody in a multifocal contact who comes in with complaints of seeing shadows, glare, halos at night bothering them, I mean, if they're old enough, you're thinking cataracts, obviously, but you're also thinking, how's that contact position? Because if that contact is decentered, then that could be part of their problem because the brain just cannot translate those different focal points. So if you hear that, it's a multifocal, you're looking at that centration of the lens. If it's perfectly centered, great, centered. If it's decentered, you have that as an option in that pick list for that one. Mark that it's decentered and make sure you have notes in the contact lens comment that they're having those issues. Because these contacts are one size fits all. So our only option is for the patient to live with it, or we try another brand and see if that other brand, even if the curvature is the same and the diameter is the same, the thickness of the contact could be different enough that it sits differently on the eye. So centration is important. So this is low, medium, and high. Cooper vision, instead of low, medium, high, actually gives you an add value, +1, +150, +2, +250. Then you'll see an N or a D. The N and the D decide what gets put in the center, whether it's like every other contact where it's near, intermediate, distance, or distance, intermediate, near. So the dominant eye, we'd like to have that distance in the center, keep that really sharp, and the non-dominant eye might get the N to put the near in the center, or it might get a D too. If you have somebody who's, you know, in their late 40s and not having that much struggle and they do a lot at the computer, maybe they get 2 Ds, you know. But then when they get in their 50s, have a little bit more trouble with this, they do this a little bit more often, then maybe they get a D and an N. The only time I've ever gone in a Cooper Vision was a woman who really, her life was her home. You know, she'd read on her Kindle, she sewed a lot, so really up close, and yeah, she looked at the TV, but she didn't need it to be sharp, just as long as she could kind of make out what was going on, she was happy. But those are your multifocal breakdowns. So that's when you're looking at the movement of the lens. And again, your only focus is the soft contacts. If they're an RGP, a scleral or a hybrid, you're not concerned with it. That's the optometrist part. So the last thing you're going to look at is the surface of the lens. And this should be no matter what kind of contact they're in. Scleral, RGP, soft, you should be looking at the surface of that lens. And I'm going to show you some images here. These are both a lens that's not wetting well. When you see hazing over a contact like that, kind of a smoky appearance, it'll happen the same in a soft contact as it will in an RGP, these 2 pictures here. That means it's not wetting well. So usually it means the contact needs to be replaced. It is past its prime. For a soft contact lens wearer, that means they're either sleeping in it or they're not replacing it as frequently as they should. If this is the initial appearance of it, if you start to see a condensation slick on it, so you see like beads of moisture on the surface, it's really not wetting well. So this is how it'll initially look, and then you'll just start getting all this moisture content on the front surface of the lens. It's no longer oxygen permeable, it's not good for the eye. The other things on here are deposits. So you've got white is like a protein deposit. Most often you're gonna see jelly lipids. So they might have a dry eye issue or some allergy issues going on, but you'll see deposits on there. Sometimes you'll see some very specific hazing. Usually you'll see that on a scleral or an RGP where it's being stored dry and it's not getting the moisture content. So then you're talking to them about their care regimen. If you see the lipid deposits, you're talking to them about their care regimen. You want to know when you take that contact out, are you doing a little rub up and down, back and forth?
Which one's the white and which one's the jelly?
The jelly, so it looks like jelly. Those are jelly lipids.
Okay.
Actually, it looks like jelly. And then you've got the white, more protein deposits.
Okay.
And then the storing an RGP or a scleral contact dry.
Okay.
So that's that. Okay. So if you see anything on the surface of the contact, just put your notes in the contact lens comment box. If you're doing an over-refract and it seems really weird to you, just stop what you're doing and look at the contact. Is the toric in a weird orientation? Is it just gunked up and there's no point in even continuing to try to get the vision better because the contact's in poor shape? So take a look at that contact and take it out of there. The last thing, I'm going to give you guys handouts. You guys should have done this when you did your tech training. The last part of the contact lens workup is putting something in the boxes for what we think we're going to give that patient when they leave. And this is focusing on soft contact lenses. Hard contact lenses, Synergize, and sclerals, the prescription of the contact is always determined by putting one of those contacts in the eye and measuring the prescription with the 4-opter over that contact. Soft contact lenses, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, is based on the manifest refraction. The only time when you get something different is usually post-RK or post-LASIK, where they might have a slight irregularity, and the contact lens prescription actually can differ from the manifest, but mostly you're basing it off manifest. So if the patient has just a little bit of sil, we'll say 1 diopter or less, they could do with a contact that's just a sphere-only contact. And we do that with the spherical equivalent. Hopefully this isn't new to anybody, where you take half of the sil and subtract it from the sphere portion of the prescription. And that's sphere equivalent. So if somebody has a lot of rotation with their torics and they don't have that much sil, they might do better on a sphere-only lens. But if they have enough sil, which you have to have at least 0.75 to make a toric lens worthwhile, then you've got transposition, because the contact lenses come in minus sil, not plus sil. So you have to transpose the manifest put that in there, and get the prescription. The last part of it is vertexing. Anybody who has a -4 or more myopia or a +4 or more hyperopia, we have to vertex the lens because we have to take into account the distance between their eye and the lens. There is no distance when it's a contact right on the eye. So this is a Tyler Quarterly. They have it in the contact lens room at Precision and in Centera in their little office in the back station there. It has every contact known to man, all the parameters that they come in, everything you need to know about oxygen permeability. And in the back, they have a vertex distance conversion table. There's also apps that can do this online, but if you have a patient who's like a -8 at say 12 millimeters distance in the phoropter, that contact should be a -725. So you have to reduce the amount of prescription for a myopic patient or add more plus to a hyperopic patient. And that's called vertexing. So when you work up a patient, you've got the fields at the top that say what the patient came in wearing for a contact, and then all the information about that contact lens that they came in with, and then what are we gonna give the patient when they go. You aren't wrong if you just put in what they came in with. It gives the scribe something to build on, because if you scribe, you know it can get hectic and crazy. The more that the workup tech puts in there for you, the easier your life is. So getting as much information in there is just brilliant for the scribe. But if you want to take a shot, oh, you know what, I got a +50 over refract on both the contacts, so instead of a -5, I bet he's going to give a -450. Put a 450 in there at the bottom. And do you guys know, I don't know where I put my thing, what I'm talking about on the computer, the EHR page of where that goes? You might can find it. Here. That's fine. There. So what we put here, this is the trial contact lens or the new contact lens prescription that we're going to give the patient. So the workup tech putting something in here, super helpful. Even if you put the exact same parameters here, then if we're staying in that same contact, the only thing the scribe has to maybe change is the prescription value. But having something in there, but if you've gotten an over-refract, you could apply that over-refract or a slightly different manifest, you could apply that, do the spherical equivalent, do the transposition, whatever applies to that, and put those values in these boxes. You don't save these ones down. These ones will be saved down after the doctor confirms that that's what we're going to do. But all of this is pretty much all you need to know to be a functional tech, a workup tech, in an optometrist clinic. And it's pretty much just that basic. So, but
Right.
I know, I'm sorry, it's a lot, but it's just that. But I am going to be doing more trainings, going very specific into each of these types of contacts and troubleshooting and different things. This is real basic, but real basic is still a lot of information. So if you have any questions, you can ask me anything, anytime. You can email me, you can ask any of the other optometrist techs that work with this all the time. Happy to answer any questions. I know I pushed the limit of the hour for questions right now, but a lot of information to get out in the course
For
of an
those of you
hour.
intimidated, if you live on that page for like a day, just like working with an optometrist,